So if she was already able to see it, what is it saying here when it says the eyes of them were both opened? So something genetically changed. And what concerns me is that there may be the possibility in my book Eden, where I mentioned that there's 223 genes that do not have what the evolutionaries really promote as an evolutionary tree. They try to say, you know, genetically we all have, animals have genetic trees. But these 223 genes do not have that. Almost like they were instantaneously
cut off,
either instigated or put into us, or we acquired it in some strange way.
Right.
And I think if we really look at this, those 223 genes affect our neurotransmitters of the brain and affect the chemicals which are in the pineal gland, as well as the hormones that affect our sexual glands, which is a real eye-opener.
Yes.
Because then we're like, so there's a parallel here. And this is some of the research I've been doing on Noah. Because when Noah came off the ark, he planted a vine that allowed him to grow what was it seems to be grapes, and that he had wine and he got drunk of the wine. And in that drunkenness, Ham came in to do something that we don't really, it doesn't really tell us, but it appears that a sexual act of some nature took place.
I think so.
And then there was a curse that followed.
Right, and it was on his firstborn son, because Noah had already blessed his 3 sons, and so the curse was on Canaan.
So I'm thinking that this tree that the serpent was tempting Eve with the fruit was to get her intoxicated in some form that allowed either him to subdue her in a sexual position, or either to allow the hormones to generate themselves so that she could actually have children. Because again, we haven't really heard God say anything about, you know, having children or doing anything at this point in time. So something opened the eyes, something made them aware of the sexual end of it, because now, instead of feeling comfortable, there's something going on here that's making them uncomfortable.
Right.
But we've got 2 things. Their eyes were already open because they could see it. Now we're saying those eyes are now opened a different way, and that they now know that they are naked.
Dr. Joye, I want to confirm what you just said, because have you heard of the Colburn Bible at all?
Yes, I have heard of the Colburn Bible.
Read any of it
Only
at all?
a little bit of it in probably the last 2 or 3 months.
Okay, I've been reading a lot of the Colburn Bible because I like to read whatever I have not read, just so I can have it in, so I can see what it says. Well, it's so strange because this one particular part is from the Colburn Bible, and you're just going to be shocked with what this says, because it verifies exactly what you just said. And this is the part, the Colburn Bible calls Adam Dadam and Eva Ma'eva. But I'm going to just read this part. Part of this was given to Ma'eva, and the rest was drunk by the Yoslings, from their offal and kittle during their night rites. When the morning came, they were all smitten with grievous pains, and before the sun set that day all the Yoslings were stricken with a sickness, such as they had not known before. Ma'eva took what had been given to her, and finding Dadam, laid low in his bed and gave him a draught from her vessel. Though she had to use womanly wiles to get him to drink it, she drank the remainder, and they both slept. But when they awoke in the morning, both were suffering pains, and this was something they had not known before. Dadam said to the woman, "What have you done? For what has happened to us cannot be unless the things which are forbidden have been done." The woman replied, "Lord, I was tempted, and I fell. I have done that which is forbidden and unforgivable." Dadam said, "I am bound by duty to do certain things, but first, let us go into the Gizar, to the place called Beth Kelchris, where I will seek enlightenment." So they went there together and stood before the shrine beneath the tree of wisdom. There they were filled with an inflowing vision, seeing themselves as they were and as they should have been, and they were ashamed. He because he had not followed the proper path of a man, and she because of her falsity. There, in the reflecting mist, the contamination of the woman was revealed, and the man's heart shriveled within him like a flower licked by a flame. Then they saw a great spirit being materializing in the reflecting mist, and he said to them, Woe to you and your house, for the greatest of evils has befallen the race of the children of God, and it is defiled. The heritage of Katahampa, I don't know what that is lost. The fetid flow defiling the woman results from incompatible intermingling, but it is not all, for sickness and diseases were also generating from the ferments of this impure implantation. Dedam said, The fault is with the women. Wherefore should I suffer? The spirit being replied, Because you two are now as one, the cankerworms of disease and sickness strike both equally. But you shall not again defile this place. Henceforth, the misty veil becomes an impenetrable barrier, severing our two realms from each other, so that they can no longer be easily spanned. Between us there will now be no means of communication. Henceforth, man and woman, fated to unite in love divine, shall be divided and set apart, though ever yearning reunion. They may cleave one to another, seeking the unity which will rekindle the flame, but unless their efforts transcend the limitations of earthly things, they will be in vain. The spirit of man is now severed from the whole and cast again into unconsciousness, and it too shall long for reunion with the whole. The spark shall seek to return to the fire, for otherwise it becomes nothing. The last part here. The web of fate is rewoven and the paths of destiny remade. The design of life is redrawn. Again, the progression begins in ignorance. Birth, death, pain, pleasure, joy, sorrow, success and failure, love, hate, peace, war, all the light and shade, the many hues making the splendidly intricate pattern of life on earth. This is a new beginning, but a beginning not in purity and unencumbered, but one already weighted with debts and burdens. And the thing I found most interesting is that she was giving Adam a draught. They both passed out, they woke up, they had been raped, and it says that the fetid flow defiling the woman results from the incompatible intermingling, but it is not all, for sickness and diseases are also generating from the ferments of this impure implantation. So even with Dr. Joye not ever having read the Copeland Bible, and me just coming to this recent revelation, here the Lord again is giving us discernment and confirming what she's telling you with something that I found in the extra biblical text.
I had someone send me the Copeland Bible, and I had just kind of flipped through it because I read so much that I was like, okay, I've got to get to this, and I even have that. But I cannot wait to get home to read the whole thing, because again, in looking at the parallels between this and what happened to Noah and the curse and the drunkenness, it only makes sense as to that something really happened that changed us or allowed the serpent to take advantage of a situation. And had they not eaten the fruit that God, if they had never eaten of that fruit, then they would have not gotten to the point that Satan could have played the game.
Absolutely. Okay, let's continue with the garden revelation, Dr. Joye, because that story that I just read from the Coleman Bible seems to confirm exactly what you were talking about, so please continue.
Well, I think that's the thing that interests me the most, is that it appears that there have been other documentary or other documentation, to say, of something happening in that garden that really is really told to us in the Bible, but it's because of our interpretation that we unfortunately, and maybe someone intended, that's terrible to say, but intended for us not to get this in our mind, so that at the end of time we would miss the understanding of who the Antichrist was going to be and why he was going to come looking like Jesus. because in the garden, I fully believe that the serpent was looking godlike.